Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've been spending way too much time scrolling through the internet lately, but I've gathered up some of the most interesting and chaotic Reddit stories just for you. Today, I'm going to be building in my Minecraft world in the background while I read these absolute messes for you guys. So grab some snacks, get comfortable, and let's jump right into the very first story from user Music Catnip, titled, "They're Picking All the Grapes." My parents rent a house on a 1/4 acre of land. The land with rows of grapes is not being rented to my parents, but the landlord lets us pick them and juice them every year. The only access to the grapes is through the land my parents rent. Before my parents moved in, this old lady, Maureen, used to pick the grapes with her family and juice them. As a side note, Maureen has her own grapes, but she likes to use our landlord's grapes too because previous tenants did not. Every freaking year, it's a battle to make Maureen wait to pick grapes so we can pick a share. The landlord has been clear that we get first dibs on the grapes because we're his actual tenants. We always leave her at least a row, one of four. Every year she tries to be sneaky and get the grapes, but this year was the worst. My mom told Maureen that she was going to pick the grapes this weekend. Well, this weekend came and went without being able to pick grapes. My mom's helper crew got sick, my dad was recovering from major surgery, and she couldn't find the time or energy. Maureen calls to inform my mom that she is coming tomorrow to pick all the grapes we didn't. My mom asked her to please wait a few more days as her husband, my dad, has cancer and her helpers were sick. Maureen's response? That's too bad. You had your chance. My family is coming tomorrow and we are picking the grapes. Of course, my poor mom loses it at this point and begins screaming, "Shame on you, Maureen! You call yourself a Christian!" Maureen continues telling her she had her chance. So my mom came in and told me this story. I said, absolutely freaking not. We are staying up as late as needed to pick every single grape off the vines. Every single one. We both called as many friends as we could. The troops are being gathered. We now have about 10 people to help us pick the grapes. We will pick every single grape so that when stupid Maureen and her stupid family show up, there will not be one little fruit left on the vine. All-nighter for the grapes. I absolutely love the chaotic energy of assembling an army in the middle of the night just to spite a ridiculously entitled neighbor. Let's see if their all-nighter paid off in the update. Update. OMG, wow. Okay, well, I love how many of you would help pick grapes. It makes me feel bad about the fact that the update isn't super satisfying. Maureen called my mom last night, an hour or so into picking, to apologize and said we could have all the grapes. My mom, being a much better person than I am, told her she can still have a row or two because we didn't need all the grapes. But Maureen kept saying no and that she won't come by at all. Ironically, it almost sounded like she was throwing a fit about it, like we're being nice and still letting you come. So we did pick grapes, but not everything. We still hate Maureen. Apparently, she's 92 and she believes she will live forever because of her homemade grape juice. So that's one reason she's so crazy about this whole thing. Maybe she will live forever, but that would be unfortunate because she's a jerk. The fact that this 92-year-old woman literally thinks she is going to achieve immortality through stolen grape juice is the funniest plot twist I have ever heard. She tried to call their bluff, realized they were actually going to pick the vines clean out of pure spite, and threw a massive tantrum instead. Absolutely incredible. Would you have stayed up all night picking grapes just to ruin Maureen's plans, or would you have let her win this round? Let me know your best petty revenge strategies down in the comments. The absolute audacity of the boyfriend in this next post is going to make your blood boil. Their boyfriend uninvited them on a vacation. My boyfriend wanted to go on a vacation this summer to his mom's friend's house in Hawaii with me and his two best friends, 25M and 29F. We had been planning on this all spring, and at some point, 25M dropped out of the trip, leaving just the three of us. For context, my boyfriend and I have been going out since November, and it's been serious. We had, and still have, been talking about moving in together, and he has said, and I agree, that this is a long term situation and that we are in it for good. In early June, once 25M unexpectedly dropped out of the trip, 29F called my boyfriend and told him that now that it was just the three of us, she didn't feel comfortable with me going on the trip since she didn't know me that well and she didn't want to be a third wheel. She said that if I were to go, she wouldn't go on the trip. Without telling me that this was happening, they changed the plans and made it a trip just the two of them, and they changed the location to a beach in Costa Rica. I was trying to figure out when to ask for time off this summer and hadn't heard news about the plans, so I asked my boyfriend which week in August I should be setting aside for the Hawaii trip. He let me know that, actually, he had talked to his friend and that she didn't want to go if I were going, so he was going to go alone with her to Costa Rica. He said that we could go another week later, maybe to Mexico City or something. I was upset and tried to talk with him about how the situation made me feel, especially since this wasn't a case of a separate trip being set up ahead of time. This was a case of me being invited and then uninvited from a week-long tropical vacation with a girlfriend of his who I had never met before. We eventually decided to do a trip together to Copenhagen, which we have both wanted to visit, as some sort of compensation. I also asked to meet her so that I could feel more comfortable with the trip. We spent the 4th of July going to see her and her boyfriend in the city where they live, and although it was nice to put a face to a name, it was ultimately a very cold trip, and she was not at all welcoming to me. My boyfriend remarked on how unfriendly she was, to both of us, he thought, and said that he was surprised that she didn't act warmly to me. I went out of my way to try get to know her and her boyfriend. I'm very outgoing and friendly, and usually this would be easy. But it didn't really click, even after several days. They were somewhat cold to each other as well. They bickered a little bit about their future and his own 3-week trip without her that was scheduled for the same time as their trip. This had been scheduled before ours had. This had been my effort to feel better about the trip, so I told my boyfriend that I still didn't feel comfortable with things, and that I was feeling insulted by the way that it was handled. I had tried to make things smooth between all of us, and I asked him to please come up with something that could help me feel better about the trip. On a visit to his family, they asked about the trip, and they were all shocked that he would have arranged it this way, and let me know that they would have been furious if they were in my position, which triggered a fight in which I asked him to please help come up with a strategy to make me feel better and more secure about them going together without me. He said that he would never do this kind of thing again, which feels like not much to offer since this is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime trip to begin with. He kind of offered to not go on the trip, but he had already paid for the tickets and made arrangements, and I didn't want to stop their trip and be resented by both him and his best friend. He asked me to give him ideas of how to make me feel better and wanted me to just tell him what to do, and stalled until it was finally the day of the trip. He bought me a bag of peanut butter cups, and I drove the two of them to the airport. I feel so disregarded and disrespected in this situation. I want to break up with him, but I don't want to burn up something that has otherwise been really good. TLDR. I, 28F, was uninvited from a vacation with my boyfriend, 29M, and his best friend, 29F, and I can't get over it. I want advice on how to talk with him about this. Honestly, I don't know how she found the strength to drive them to the airport because I would have dumped him the second he uninvited me. Let's see how she handled it once they finally left for their totally platonic honeymoon. Update. I was really upset the day I dropped him off, and he was texting me, but I wasn't responding. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to do anything at all in the state I was in. I waited until the next day, and then I sent him a thought-out text, letting him know that I didn't feel safe or loved in the way the trip was handled, and that I would be dropping his things off at his place and leaving his keys with the neighbor. He called but didn't leave any messages, and then he messaged me that he didn't understand. The rest of the week, he called and messaged me, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up or text back. On Thursday, I think that he realized that I was serious, and he asked me some questions about logistical things. I told him which neighbor his key was with, etc. When he got back and saw all his things at his place, he got pretty frantic and called and left me a long message. I was working all day, but also I still didn't want to respond. He asked me to explain because he didn't understand what was going on. The next day, I sent another text making it clear that it was over, and he got upset and sent me a bunch of texts in a row about how he didn't understand why I was throwing away everything that we built. He left me a voicemail that was really angry that said he had no idea why I was upset and that he did not accept the breakup because he had no say in it, and that he wanted me to tell him the evil story that I had made up about him to his face. I wasn't going to respond to him and I wanted to remain calm, but this upset me. So I sat down to write him this letter. It's long, so skip over if you want. I tried to call him, but I started crying and told him I'd just send him an email instead. This is what it said. The time that we have had apart has given me some good space and time to think. I've had a chance to think about the things that are important for me in a relationship, and I see that we should not be together. I am sorry that I have been asking for you to change things about your life that you shouldn't have to change at my or anyone's behest. From the very start, this trip was made in an insanely disrespectful way, in which it started out from you being given an ultimatum by your female best friend, who I had never met, that either she goes or I go on this trip, and you picked her. You didn't offer to have her meet me. Theoretically, I was your long-term partner, so this would have made a lot of sense. You didn't encourage her to find someone else to come, and you didn't consult me at all. That's enough for most people to have a deal breaker, right there. However, I stayed. This is a person who you have a history with that is not entirely clear to me. Here is what I understand. Some bad rumors got started about the two of you, in which you spent an entire night out with her on an acid trip while you were dating someone else. Nothing happened. The other thing I understand is that you were interested in her romantically at some theoretically other point, and that she started dating her boyfriend, and that closed the door on things for you. According to what I also understand, it took a long time for 29F's boyfriend to feel comfortable with you being around, but you apparently worked to ultimately make him feel comfortable with you after I'm not sure how long. This is the completely unknown person who shut me out of a trip that I was originally going to go on, unilateral decision. You did not tell me this was happening until I asked when the trip to Hawaii would be. You purchased tickets in another very disrespectful situation in which I have cooked dinner and have guests present, and you choose to go into my room for well over an hour to select tickets with her, and in which I repeatedly ask you to please come to dinner because you say it will just be a few more minutes each time. There is absolutely no reason for doing it at that time and in that situation, seeing as how she is in the same time zone as us and has a 9-to-5 job. This makes me feel sick to my stomach. So, to make myself feel better about this whole arrangement, I tell you that I want to meet this person. On my request, we arrange a trip to go meet her and her boyfriend. A brief trip in which they are, and you explicitly agree, inexplicably cold. The first conversation that we have is one in which 29F and her boyfriend argue about how she DM'd him while he was already in a relationship and got him to date her instead. You tell me about conversations that 29F has had with you recently in which it seems implied that there is some real instability in their long-term relationship. Stuff about kids and dogs. I have a discussion in which I let you know that I see that and that it worries me. Meanwhile, I am still wanting all of this to work out for you and for me and for her. I, at this point, am planning on being with you for the long term and see no benefit in telling you to not go on a trip with your best friend. I want it to work out, But each and every interaction surrounding this trip chips and chips and chips away at my ability to handle it. The conversations that seem to go nowhere, etc. Your dad, your mom, and your grandparents are all very surprised when we tell them about this trip. It is becoming very obvious that this is a dangerous trip to make with the fragility of our relationship. 29M, we had only been together for 9 months. How long did it take before 29F's boyfriend was comfortable with you hanging around, much less going on a one on one international tropical vacation in which he was uninvited because of your request? We go over it with at the rock climbing gym, we go over it in the car, we go over it while we're booking our Airbnb for Copenhagen. We go over it when I tell you that I still feel uncomfortable and I do not feel good about the trip. Talk about repeatedly saying something. Although I ask for you to help me, you actually ask me instead to come up with what would make me feel better. Surprisingly, I have no ideas either. Ultimately, it appears that the original plan to meet at my place and hang out and do a game night before you two go on the trip has been canceled, and 29F will be staying at my place, but not hanging out with us at all beforehand. You attribute it to you not bringing it up with her early enough. This is apparently not something that was discussed even 2 nights before the trip. This upsets me. You do not know what to do. I don't blame you. At this point, it was well out of hand. I don't know what to do either. There is no good solution that I can think of besides waiting for the trip to be over. I tell you that either I have to get over it or I have to break up with you, and that I don't want to break up with you. But my ability to get over it is rather worn down. She arrives at my place very late, and we wake up the next morning for me to take the two of you to the airport. After all of this lead up, I know that you can tell how unhappy I am. I fully, absolutely know you can tell how unhappy I am. You leave, and when I don't respond to your text messages, you text me to tell me that you hope I'm okay and you're going to bed. No call. The rest of the week was rough. My text to you was met with, essentially, "I'm sorry you feel this way. You tell me that I'm being unfair." There is no acknowledgement, and there still has been none, that this trip to a freaking honeymoon destination, as we have discussed before, could be a crazy and horrible thing to go through with, even with my quasi-blessing. This is not something that people in relationships have to deal with. This is not something that people in relationships do, besides 29F, I guess. In the end, all of this is to say that I have felt serious emotional needs go seriously unmet in a way that is a deal breaker for me. There have been some wonderful, very positive times, but there has been an unnecessary amount of heartache and suffering for me over things that come down to what I can only assume are personal differences. I cannot handle your relationship with 29F. And I suppose I could ask you to pick between her and me, but that's not what I want to do. I want you to have your best friend, and I want to leave. I did love you, but I am not about to fight this fight and hear you tell me that I'm crazy for not seeing how totally platonic everything is for the rest of my life. It seems like trying to convince someone to like different food or to have a different favorite color. I am not happy in this, and I do not want to feel these feelings any longer. There is no need for this to be mutual. I do not need your permission to break up with you. He wrote me back an apologetic email in which he accepted responsibility for most things without any argument, except he denied anything that had to do with his relationship with her making me feel uncomfortable, and he denied that I would not be able to handle their relationship. He said that the only thing that made their trip bad for me was my own perspective. I wrote him back that trust has to be built and that he put too much strain too early on a relationship in which we had not developed that trust. He agreed and apologized. For me, it ended on a pretty amicable note. but this style of relationship really doesn't work for me, and I don't feel like his responses to me really healed or changed anything significantly. I stand by my decision at this point. I am so incredibly proud of her for writing that email. "I do not need your permission to break up with you" is such a powerful statement. He gaslit her for months, prioritized a girl he clearly had a crush on, and then acted like a victim when she finally chose her own self respect. She handled this with so much maturity. What do you guys think? Was she crazy for dropping them off at the airport? Or was dumping him while he was on vacation the ultimate petty move? Let me know your thoughts down below. I love reading your takes on these. Moving right along to our next post. Have you ever worked incredibly hard on a personal project only for a family member to literally steal it and pass it off as their own? This next one from user stolen-ideas is just wow. Let's get right into it. It's titled, "Their sister stole their book and made a huge profit." Unnecessary edit because there are just too many ugly messages. To those who think this is fake because of incoherency, grammar, and structure, it's why editors and proofreaders exist. They're hired to fix the manuscript before publishing. I didn't proofread this, and that's my fault. I like to write, but I'm not a professional writer. English is my second language. To those who think it's impossible to make lots of profit from a one-time self-published book with an unheard-of author, SIL has a decent following. When her followers buy the book, it climbs Amazon rankings, and that means it's more visible to other buyers interested in the same genre. I came here not for legal advice at first because I was struggling morally. I needed help, not to have people attack me in private messages and in the comments. To those who only commented that this is fake or how I can't be a writer who fails at basic writing skills, if you do not have anything useful to say, please kindly keep your irrelevancy to yourself. I, 24F, write as a hobby, and I like sharing my short stories with my small following. I do want to publish one day, but I want to make it perfect first since it's not edited yet. The unfinished book we're talking about came from an idea that I started to build when I was in middle school. I just finished it last year, but because of the virus, I was forced to put that project aside to ensure steady employment with my day job. My brother and SIL came to visit me to introduce their baby daughter about 6 months ago. SIL just thrust her baby into my arms, even though I lack even the barest knowledge on how to hold a baby. The baby was fussy, and my brother helped calm her down, while SIL said she wanted to use the bathroom to pump breast milk. They left later, and I didn't think anything of it until recently that I was told SIL had published a book, and it had been a while since she published. Self-publishing is not as time-consuming as traditional publishing. I don't doubt my SIL's intelligence because she is a smart woman, but I've always heard how she dislikes books because they're boring and drag on. I wanted to show my support and brought a copy only to realize it's way too similar to mine. I compared it to my copy of unpublished work. It's obvious it's been edited and proofread for fluidity and clarity. I was angry, and I admit I overreacted by confronting her over the phone. She said my screaming was upsetting her and hung up on me. It was a back and forth battle with phone numbers to get to the truth. By this time, my parents and her parents are involved. The absolute audacity to steal an entire manuscript while pretending to use someone's bathroom is mind-blowing. But wait until you hear how the rest of the family reacted when the original author fought back. Update, new edit. Things did not go as planned. I can't give you an update now, but soon. Really sorry. Little update on the apology. It's not out. She said she needed more time to prepare her emotional state, and she's overworked with their child, but she'll let me know when I can have the apology. Thank you everyone for giving me advice on how to proceed with this mess. After speaking with my pre-law friend, I decided to go the legal route. I reiterated my compromise with SIL and my brother, but he has fully taken her side. My parents warned me that I'd be disowned, and I'd be dead to them if I'm willing to stoop so low. I hired a lawyer and all the details on my side. My lawyer said she needs my unedited manuscript for the book and my SIL's published book, along with the copy SIL sent to have it proofread and edited. Because the published book has different parts changed, my lawyer needs the unedited version, which SIL should still have in the transaction she did with her editor and proofreader. We took the risk to ask SIL for the unedited copy she sent to her editor and proofreader, despite the chance of having her feign, "I don't remember their names, I don't have their contacts anymore, I don't want to," etc. I told SIL that we will go through the route of having to use third party notarization to ensure no foul play on either part. Have one individual look at my unedited manuscript and the one she sent to her hired editor and proofreader. Once I told her that, she must have realized I was not bluffing. SIL and my brother accepted the compromise. I take the pseudonym, the royalties, with evidence of sold copies. I stipulated that SIL must put a message out to her followers on her blog that she stole from me, and not a single word in the book is hers. I thank the Redditors for suggesting that. She is clearly mad and disgusted with me for doing this to my own family. I threatened her with further legal proceedings if she doesn't do it. No lawsuit happened, but I'm glad I got a professional option just in case. As words got back to my parents of what I did and how dare I a lawyer to punish SIL because her blog followers will surely lose trust in her and future revenue, I told them and my parents that if they have anything to say, use my business email. I'm done with them. They treated an outsider, SIL, 1 month into dating my brother, better than they ever did to me. I don't need that negativity dragging me down. I'm happier, more free with my opinions, and I don't have to feel the need to compete with everything SIL does just to get my parents to love me a little more than a daughter in name. I have my friends. They've always been more of a family unit to me than my biological ones. I knew I was going to lose something coming out of this, but I didn't expect I'd be okay with the disappointment and hurt. Thank you, everyone. And no, I will not be telling anyone what the name of the book is, because I only came here to get a moral judgment and update everyone on what happened. Please don't think I'm using this for clout. The book will not be promoted on Reddit. Not then, not now, and not in the future either. I am so incredibly glad she stood her ground and hired that lawyer. It is heartbreaking that her own parents completely turned their backs on her to defend a literal thief just to protect an influencer's reputation. But honestly, good riddance. She cut off the dead weight, secured her royalties, and got the ultimate petty revenge by forcing her sister-in-law to confess to all her followers. What would you guys have done in this situation? Would you have threatened legal action against your own sister-in-law, or just let it slide to keep the peace with your parents? I really want to hear your take on this, so jump into the comments and let me know. All right, let's keep the momentum going. Have you ever had a job interview that felt less like a professional meeting and more like a bizarre psychological experiment? Because this next candidate went through an absolute nightmare. Let's just get right into it. From user Direct Caterpillar 77. They had to prepare a meal and entertain 20 people for a job interview, and so did 19 other candidates. I recently had a job interview for an entry-level program coordinator position. I walked in and there was a panel of interviewers sitting behind a table, but there was no chair for me. This was the third of 5 interviews as part of an all-day interview process, and every other session had a clear chair for the interviewee. There was a chair shoved into the corner, and after I introduced myself to everyone, I said something along the lines of, "If it is all right, I'm just going to grab this chair," and pushed the chair into the proper position. It made the whole interview process feel like a mind game. As a candidate who had been through 2 phone interviews and was enduring a 15-hour in-person interview process, games like this just seemed ridiculous. I thought I really wanted this job, but the interview process was full of games like this. They also made the 20 final candidate cook dinner for and entertain the senior staff at the executive director's house. We were given 2.5 hours to plan, shop, and cook for 40. We also had to find the address of the director's house, which turned out to be a 30-minute drive away. Do I have the wrong attitude? Are these tricks and games really a good way to test candidates? And if so, what is the best way to respond? The letter writer provided more info to Allison about the chair and cooking dinner. When they invited me for the final interview, they made it clear that it would be a whole day affair. A few days before the interview, I asked for an agenda/schedule and was told, "All I will share is that interviews will last from 8:30 a.m. to at least 9 p.m., and you will have individual interviews as well as time to mingle with fellow candidates during the day." When I arrived at the interview, I was given the schedule for the day, which included 5 individual interviews, and said that from 5 p.m. onwards, there would be a group activity. At 5, they simply announced that our group activity was to shop for and prepare a meal for 40 with entertainment to be served at 7:30 at the director's house. We were given a budget of $350 and information about food allergies in the group. No other information was given. We even had to figure out the director's address, and they didn't give any sort of reason/current. It wasn't clear if it was supposed to be an evaluation of our skills, but the senior staff spent the majority of the night drinking and dancing. The evening didn't end till 10:30 p.m. when it moved to a local bar. I cannot even begin to imagine the level of stress and chaos in that kitchen with 19 other people fighting for a job. Let's see if this absolute circus of an interview process was actually worth it in the end. Update. I've just landed a great job with a leading public health organization doing exactly what I want to be doing. I'll be in the field doing real frontline public health work. It was the most casual interview process ever. I had met with the director several months ago and consistently followed up with him to see if he knew of any openings. Finally, they had an opening and he remembered me. One quick phone interview and I got the job. No cooking or dancing like a performing monkey required. Best of all, it seems like an organization that respects and appreciates their staff. Thanks for your advice. Following your website is one of the few things that kept me sane during the job search. I am so relieved they didn't end up working for that first company. Making exhausted candidates cook dinner and dance for the senior staff while the bosses just sit back and drink is some weird, toxic power trip. Seriously, major red flags all around, and I'm so glad OP found a normal workplace that actually respects them. Honestly, I want to know what the absolute craziest job interview you've ever had was. Have you ever been asked to do something completely ridiculous or wildly unprofessional just to get a job? Tell me all about it in the comments below, because I am definitely going to be reading through those. All right, let's keep this train rolling. This next story is honestly so frustrating to read because the audacity of this bride is just off the charts. Let's jump right into it. From user Throw a Pitiful One. Their wife wanted to hold a talent show at their wedding. I, M28, knew her since college, and I'll get that out of the way first. The past few days have shown a different side of her that's a little surprising because Kay is her best friend from college. My wife, N, wanted to do a mini talent show at our reception, and she talked it up beforehand too. She read a poem that she made for the event, and Kay performed a song that she wrote. Long story short, one of the guests who I invited is into producing, and he reached out to her after she performed. They exchanged information, and Kay was really excited. He wanted to network with her following the reception, and she even thanked my wife for hosting the talent show over text. But N became really bitter about it, and that's why I'm writing this. She hasn't responded to Kay's message, and she said she regretted doing the talent show too. She also asked me to block the producer on my socials/contacts, and I told her that that seemed a bit much. She didn't like my answer and said that I was wrong to not take her side after just getting married, but I told her that she should be happy for her friend. She didn't like that either and vented to some in our friend group about how Kay was bragging, but some of them disagreed. She said she didn't want to hang out with them for the time being, and that included me too. Two of her girlfriends even texted me that she was overreacting and that they were also surprised to see her act that way. They also asked if she was okay too. My dad is suggesting counseling and said that asking me to remove friends is an unhealthy way to start a marriage. And I'm honestly more than a little scared. I asked if she'd be open to counseling, but she said there was no need because Kay was her friend first, and I shouldn't choose Kay over her. I just want to ask what to do next since she refused counseling and sees no issue with cutting off our friends. Edit. I want to add that In complained that her poem didn't get as good of a reception as Kay's song. Kay didn't study music in college but practices on the side, and her text was really thankful for the opportunity that the talent show provided. Kay is also engaged to her longtime boyfriend. If you thought her demanding he cut off all their friends over a talent show was insane, just wait until you hear the actual reason behind her poetry. The updates are about to take this to a whole new level of crazy. Update. It's been a little over 2 weeks since my first post, and I've had some time to try and process. A lot of it still feels surreal, having known her since my early 20s and the 180 after the wedding. I want to address a few things that were asked in my first post before getting to the update. N and K were not the only ones who performed in the talent show. During planning, N said she wanted to showcase her friends and how awesome/proud she was to have them. She also said it was a bonding thing between her girlfriends from our friend group, and the girls were the ones who performed. However, given her post-reception 180, it really surprised me in comparison to her pre-talent show mindset. A few people commented that she didn't need to have a talent show to read the poem she made for the wedding. She could have just read it at any time as the bride. Update. The reason I'm writing this post is because of something else that came up and led to a conversation. We had a vacation coming up, but she no longer wants to go on it. In the time since my first post, she's continued to have random mood swings due to thinking about Kay. Sometimes that's venting about how Kay would have nothing without her, or getting really quiet and distant, even while eating. She's also still upset at her girlfriends who she vented to about Kay, but when they disagreed and called her out for being bitter over a talent show no one forced her to have, she told me to cut off our friend group along with blocking the producer/girlfriends too. When I disagreed, she became distant and said I was choosing them over her. My dad suggested counseling and talking to her again because asking me to cut off friends was an unhealthy start to the relationship. So I talked to her after my first post and asked if she'd be open to it, but she said there was no need because all I had to do was cut them off. She also said I was choosing them over her and that she wouldn't go on our vacation until I did. When I asked her why Kay bothered her so much, she said she tried to publish in the past, a novel, and didn't get any hand-me-downs then. But when I reminded her that my friend was a producer on the side in his basement, she said I should have known better than to invite him, as if I should have known he would have liked Kay's song. When I told her that I wouldn't block the producer/entire friend group, she said I was entitled like Kay and that she wanted a break because I didn't care about her. I told her that I love her, but didn't think it was healthy to cut off everyone. I also told her that she should be happy for her friend because Kay was really grateful, but she didn't seem to care. She has since gone to stay with her parents and left some of her things in our apartment. I talked to my dad after she ignored text/calls for a few days, and he suggested bringing up an annulment because it had gone too far. Her parents have also ignored my calls, but I want to clarify text before I'm done. Wasn't arrogant or anything to N. All she did was thank her for putting together the talent show that allowed her to network with the producer after the wedding, and she also offered to take her out to lunch as thanks. There was no arrogance from Kay, and the producer is also engaged, as some people inquired about too. I'm just really surprised and hurt that her bitterness turned me into a bad guy for inviting my producer friend as if I was supposed to see into the future and not invite him. Edit. N got the idea to make a poem for the reception after watching the poet, Amanda Gorman, read her works at the inauguration and Super Bowl. She also said that it wasn't out of place for her to read at the reception when, quote, "Most people watching football aren't smart enough to appreciate poetry." Update 2, January 4th, 2023. Just wanted to come back to conclude this because it's been helpful to hear opinions and get everything out. A lot of people asked how I was in messages, and there were too many to reply to. We are currently in the process of a divorce. She's staying with her parents, and I've had some time to process and see things differently. I want to touch on two things that's happened since my update. The first is a Facebook post she made about me and the guests. In her post, she said she was, quote, "supposed to win," and that it was an unwritten rule for the bride to win, as if wedding talent shows are normal. She also accused them of, quote, "smiting her on her day," when no one knew about the show beforehand except her participating friends. She then accused me of taking Kay's side instead of comforting her as her new husband, but taking her side meant cutting off our friend group as she had in the aftermath. I don't know how her parents feel after she called out both sides of the guests, but I really don't care at this point. She also wanted me to cut off my producer friend, who approached Kay after she sang her original song and asked if they wanted to collab sometime, and I want to focus on that. I talked to my producer friend recently about everything, including how she wanted me to cut him off, and he couldn't believe how much it affected her. N and I watched a football game at his house with him and his fiancée some months back, and he has a day job in an office. When I told him about how N was jealous of Kay's big break, he couldn't believe it and said that he planned to let Kay use his audio interface to plug into her guitar and record a high-quality instrumental of her original, along with his microphone too. He also said he wasn't great at mixing and was taking online courses to learn, so he was going to suggest that she commission someone to mix/enhance the files they'd record, because he was far from a professional. He's a really chill guy, but he couldn't stop laughing over how N thought that he was all that. He only wanted to use his interface to give her a high-quality recording after learning that she didn't have equipment and recorded her original on her phone. He and his fiancée planned to have her for dinner, just like they had me and N over for football, and record it in the basement afterwards. Looking back in hindsight, it's crazy how you can be blinded to things, but I never imagined just how crazy she could get. I didn't say this in my first two posts because I thought it might overshadow her actions, but she sometimes posts about women empowerment on her socials, and I recently thought about that for one reason. When I asked her why she wanted to have a talent show, she said she wanted to emphasize the importance of having good friends because they were important to a relationship. But as I look at it now, perhaps it was never about that. Nen was bothered the second that Kay's song got a better reception than her, and she doubled down when she vented to two of her girlfriends after the wedding who called her out for being jealous, and that made her demand I also cut off our friend group. To everyone who asked what her poem was about, it was about women empowerment and the importance of having good friends and family when starting a family, and she told me the premise beforehand, although she never showed me the poem. She wanted it to be a surprise, but I never had a chance to see it on paper after the wedding for reasons. Many people also corrected how she said that Kay received a hand-me-down opportunity at the wedding, but the proper term was handout, as many corrected. I really appreciate everyone who offered advice, as it helped a lot mentally, not to mention looking back at how crazy it all was. Just hoping to fully get over it as time goes on, but I've gotten over some of it recently. It is genuinely baffling how someone can throw away an entire marriage just because they didn't win a talent show that they forced everyone to participate in. Writing a poem about empowering women and good friends, and then immediately demanding your husband cut off all his friends out of sheer jealousy. You just can't make this stuff up. I am so glad he got out of that marriage before things got even worse. I want to know what you guys think about this one. Have you ever seen a bride act this entitled at a wedding? Or is this peak main character syndrome? Moving on to the next one, this story is honestly fascinating. It's a total what would you do scenario. Imagine winning the lottery, keeping it a secret for years, and then your secret accidentally slips out in the most random way possible. Here's the story from a former Redditor titled, "They Didn't Tell Their Husband About the Lottery They Won Years Ago." The lottery winning took place back in August 2014. My husband and I were married in October 2014. It wasn't a fortune, but enough to make a difference. After taxes, it came out to right around $480,000. Most people would be over the moon, but I panicked. I didn't want our life to turn upside down because we had extra money now. I was still legally single at the time, and so I was able to accept it anonymously without the need to tell anyone else. So I didn't tell anyone else. Not a single soul. Not my husband, my parents, siblings, best friends, etc. Only the state and federal governments. My husband has a tendency to spend on things we don't need and that aren't going to benefit us in the long run, so I didn't want our money to blow quickly on stupid stuff like cars and clothes. I opened a new bank account with a national credit union and put the check in. Got started with a financial advisor who guided me into investing in local businesses and real estate. And that's that. It's been sitting there since, just growing. Flash forward to today. I'm doing dishes, getting ready to start making dinner, and my phone rings. I can't get to it, but figure I'll call them back. Then I get a text. No big deal, I'll get to it in a minute. But husband came into the kitchen and glanced at my phone to let me know who texted me and called me, which he always does if my hands are full. It's my financial advisor. He called and texted me to let me know my account just hit $1 million after one of the energy companies I invested in soared recently. My husband is stunned, has no clue what to even say, staring at me until he says, "We have $1 million?" I was so flushed, but finally just sat him down and explained the situation. He's clearly mad at me for never telling him, asks if my family knows, and I tell him that no one knows except the IRS and my financial advisor. It took him a few hours to finally be able to really talk to me. At the end of the silence, he told me he's proud of me for investing in our future, but he needs a few days to clear his head because he feels like I hid a huge part of myself from him. We might just need to take a vacation now. TLDR. I won a lottery in 2014 and never told my husband until he learned that I grew the money to $1 million today. I mean, finding out your spouse has been hiding $1 million for almost a decade is definitely enough to send anyone on a vacation to clear their head. Let's see how they moved past the shock in the updates. Update 1. My husband and I just spoke on the phone for about an hour. He told me he's staying with his best friend / coworker tonight, but that he's not angry. He agreed he would have spent the money on dumb things if he'd won it, and is happy that I put it away. Little less happy that I didn't tell him about it for so long, but he said he doesn't care and doesn't want this getting in the way of our marriage. Update 2. Hello! Jesus, I didn't know this would blow up so much. I've been at work and talking to my husband all day, basically laying down some ground rules for the money moving forward. He will not tell anyone, didn't tell his friend, and we will only dip in for emergencies and pre-discussed things. A few people asked in the comments how much we make a year, I guess to see where we'd be without this money. I currently make around $60,000 and my husband makes more at around $85,000. So to all the ones saying I starved him or made him scrounge, that is not true, LOL. We make a good amount. I actually respect her for being so disciplined. Most people would have blown that $480,000 on luxury cars and vacations, and instead, she turned it into $1 million nest egg for their future. Sure, hiding it for 10 years is wild, but considering her husband's spending habits, It seems like she actually protected their future. Would you be furious if your partner hid a massive lottery win from you for years? Or would you be thrilled that they managed to turn it into $1 million? I'm dying to know your take on this. Let me know in the comments. We're keeping this streak of Reddit chaos alive. This next one is a classic play stupid games, win stupid prizes moment. Honestly, I think we've all had that one teacher who clearly put zero effort into their curriculum, but this student took full advantage of it in the worst way possible. Here is a post from u/oopsie doopsie loopsie titled, "They messed up by getting a 100% on their chemistry test." This happened just now. My chemistry teacher had the bright idea to let us students use anything except our friends and our laptops during our final unit exam today, and as can be expected from someone as badass as me, I took it a bit too far. Her intention was to allow students to use the textbook and their notes to solve the problems. I'm a junior in high school taking a college-level chem course, to throw us a bone after a really tough unit. So what did I do? As part of my resources, I decided to bring in a second test with answers already on it from the web, thinking that the types of questions asked were likely to be similar and I would have a better idea of what to do. Unfortunately, I didn't expect my chemistry teacher to be as lazy as she is, and as she handed out the test, I realized something. She had exactly the same test I had. She had literally just Googled the name of our course, found the test, printed it, and handed it out. All I had to do was copy in the answers from my already filled in test, finishing miles before everyone else, giving me the rest of the period free. So far, this story sounds great. As I handed it in, she asked if she could see my resources. My face froze. The silence became louder in my ears. Time slowed down. She took the packet from my unmoving hands, leafed through, and looked me straight in the face. 5 seconds later, everyone's test is gone, and I'm ushered to the principal's office. By virtue of the fact that I am on Reddit, I'm already unpopular, so we'll see what happens to my social life now. Sitting here waiting for her to come back from lunch. Updates to come. If you thought things were awkward before, just wait until you hear the aftermath. He didn't just get himself in trouble, he basically nuked his entire social standing in one afternoon. Update. And here's what happened. So the principal came back, we talked. The teacher said that I went beyond the bounds of what was acceptable, that it was unfair for me to get the 100%, and I should be punished. After arguing for a while, it has been decided that I am not in trouble, and my parents won't be contacted. That said, the teacher was violating school rules, and as a result, everyone has to retake the test, without any resources. No one is talking to me, everyone hates me, and was looking forward to an easy grade, and the unpopular guy just became even more unpopular. Hopefully she won't just Google the next test. What a great day, everyone. TLDR. Teacher was lazy, I was a smartass, ended up being a dumbass, now everyone thinks I'm an ass. Edit. Insert typical, "This exploded! Thank you for making a lonely high schooler feel special for a day. I finally understand what RIP inbox means. One thing is clear, I was an absolute imbecile, and if I'd played my cards right, none of this would have happened. But such is life, so I'll just lament my mistakes with Monty Python. My gold cherry has officially been popped. Thank you, kind stranger." I mean, you have to appreciate the audacity of bringing a literal answer key to an exam, but pulling that stunt in a room full of students who were counting on that grade, that's social suicide, man. The teacher was definitely lazy for Googling the test, but he definitely brought the unpopular guy energy on himself for getting the whole class punished. Would you have been the person to keep your mouth shut and take the free grade? Or would you have done what he did and gotten the whole class busted? Tell me your move in the comments. I'm curious who among you is the master cheat and who's the rat.